Back in February this year, Manx Auto Sport reported it was facing challenges to stop a recent decline in interest in the sport of rallying on the Isle of Man. It's not as if the island doesn't have its fair share of excellent rallying events, and yet, several months ago, efforts were getting underway to try and get more local people involved in the sport, whether behind the wheel or assisting behind the scenes. Around 8 months have now passed since then, so what have the respective clubs and those that run them done to try and improve the situation, and what is demand and interest looking like now? Dave Clucas is a former committee member for Manx Auto Sport, who now helps organise events with the respective clubs on Manx shores. I caught up with him this month to find out how attempts to grow the sport are going.
I think obviously a change is going to take time to implement, but there's been great progress, I think, from the point of view of the grassroots events. Manx Auto Sport do a fantastic job with putting on two of the big events on the Isle of Man, and May was quite successful. And it proved that there's a lot of interest from across about coming over and doing large events, large rallying events on the island, and it can still attract a good competitor number to our events and the events that Manx Auto Sport put on, and it's fantastic to see. And our grassroots has also progressed, and we've got night rallies coming up through Druidale. If anybody wants to have a go at those, there's some ones that use tracks where you're going to have to modify your car a bit, but there's also going to be tarmac ones for night events where people can take out their normal car that they use. And Druidale they have just put on what they call production car auto tests, and that was down in a field down by Church Bends, and George, who put them on, did a fantastic job putting a couple of them on, obviously weather affected, one of them, but it's great, and that's where we need to concentrate and bring people through from the grassroots side. And they did a fantastic job there. And it was great to see, because as we mentioned, I think, didn't we talk about the kids and families being involved in that, and people from 14 being able to drive? I think we mentioned that, didn't we, Rob?
We did, yes.
So you can drive your own car that you've got set, and obviously there might be arguments about whose car they choose, but they can bring it down to one of the events, and kids from 14 can, as long as they're capable of driving, can go out and learn how to drive a car properly. They can learn how to handle it on loose surfaces, what happens if the car goes out of control, how to take control back, and it's a fantastic way to learn how to drive and give them that early skill set. But also one of the major things is that if it is a family that go down there, usually there is a bit of competition between the parents and the kids, or between the kids, and it's great to see, to be honest. It's good fun, it's entertaining at times, but it does bring that big fun element into rallying at a core level, at a base level, where everybody can go and enjoy it. And that's the thing that I think we need back, that enjoyment factor, that smile factor. And I think George did a fantastic job in bringing that back to rallying. And I think it's great, because it means that the more people that do it, the more people are getting interested in rallying, and the more volunteers will come for that. And I think that is where we're going to progress from. And it's fantastic to see. It's great, and it's positive. And I think we've got a great base to build on there, and I think George and Druidale have done a fantastic job with that. They should be applauded for what they've done.
When you mention about volunteers as well, it's something that is a challenge for all forms of motorsport on the Isle of Man. How much of a challenge has it been over the last few months to try and get volunteer numbers back up to good levels, and how difficult will it be to maintain that over the course of another season? Yeah,
you're quite right. It is difficult to... The Isle of Man has got something going for it, but it also can be detrimental, and that is it's sport mad. The Isle of Man has got so many different sports in different areas and different places, and it's not even motorsport. And that all of those things, and all of those the events that are put on for cycling and for enduros and trials and all the other stuff that goes on the Isle of Man in the background, like football, hockey, or everything, it all has a volunteer element. And the more sports that come around, like mountain biking was not there like 20 years ago, the more it drains on the volunteer resource pool. So yeah, obviously, I think there are issues with volunteers, the number of volunteers and the volunteers that we can try and keep. But I think we've got a good place to build from, to be honest, within rallying. I think it's within that grassroots, because that brings people who might be sat around looking for something to do. They might go, right, okay, I've seen that there's a PCA on down at Castletown. Let's go down and have a look and have a go at that, just to try something different. And it's that door, having a door that's open for people to come and try and enjoy rallying for what it is, and then maybe not compete because they can't afford that 30 grand car or 20 grand car or 4 grand car or whatever, and run it, so that that interest in rallying then builds. So then your volunteers naturally come from that. But there is going to be an issue, I think, on the Isle of Man as a whole, with obviously we've seen the changes that the government's trying to make with the age demographic getting older on the Isle of Man. And unfortunately, that's something that all clubs are going to have to face from the volunteer side, is that there's that age demographic that's getting older. So people, when they get to 60 and 70, they don't want to be stood out there, or they don't want to be involved too heavily in organisations. So it's bringing the young ones through, and that grassroots element, we're quite lucky that we can do that. And Druidel are doing a fantastic job. And that'll filter through to Manx Auto Sport, hopefully in the future. So it'll help Manx Auto Sport as well with any problems that they might have with volunteers. So we always need volunteers, because organising an event as big as Manx Auto Sport do, I mean, that takes a lot of time and effort, and they do a great job putting that on. But obviously they need more people to help. The more regulations that come in, the more issues they've got to try and solve with that. And it takes time, and it takes that element of dedication and volunteers to back that up, because it's not just one person that puts on an event. It's not just one club sometimes that puts on an event, and it's a team, and that's the main element. And the more people that you have in your team, the better.
Going forward, you say you've been encouraged by things at the grassroots level over the last couple of months. What's going to be needed going forward to continue growing that grassroots base, continue growing that volunteer base, and keep the rallying scene thriving on the Isle of Man in the long term?
It's going to take a lot of time and effort, but I think time is going to be the thing. It's going to be the key. It's not going to happen overnight. And I think if you look at what issues we could face in 5 or 6 years' time, I think we've got to address those now. And I think sometimes people lose sight of that because we're so concentrated on organising the events that are happening next year or the year after. We kind of lose sight of that future target, or that future issue, that big red bus coming over the hill kind of thing. And I think we've got to try and start to address those things now, because if you leave it any later, it could be too late. And I think that's where encouraging clubs to put on grassroots events and bring people through and open up the communication channels into rallying. I think we're in a good place to start that off, but obviously it's not going to happen overnight. There's not miraculously going to be 150 people turn up to an event that have never been involved before, or you're not going to get 150 people turn around and go, "No, I'm willing to help out." But if you start with 5 and then 10 and then 15 maybe, and those numbers will then start to grow. And as soon as people are brought in and they see what rallying is like and the support that they can get during an event, and to back them up, when a lot of people go, "I don't know, A, I don't know how to get involved. B, am I going to get the training and support that I need to do that role?" I mean, those are the two major things. Am I going to be safe and secure is obviously another one, but that's taking control of by us doing our safety plans correctly, and wrapping safety around as part of the primary organisation points. But those first two things, the how do I get involved and am I going to get training, is down to how we manage that. And opening doors and avenues into rallying is one of the things that we need to do more of. And communication is another one. But they're never left alone. They're always going to, anybody who's new to it will always get the support that they need. And that's a lot of the things that we kind of, like I mentioned before, we're not very good at promoting our own events, and we're not very good at promoting rallying as a whole. Usually the number of people that say, "Oh, I wish I had known that was on," and then I could have gone, is if we get that, "Oh, I wish I had known it was on," to "Didn't I have a great time that day?" and we switch it and flip it, I think that would be the key to driving the volunteer numbers in the future. Also doing things like this, talking to you and getting rallying out there and letting people see that it does happen on the Isle of Man, and it is available to them as a cheap form of motorsport. I mean, you can use your own car, that you can drive down to a PCA event, use your own car and, rag it around a field for a full day and have so much fun and enjoyment in a controlled environment that's safe and secure for younger people to learn how to drive a car properly. And if it gets out of shape or whatever, they can learn control. And it's a great way of running and facing that aspect and bringing people through. And we're terrible at promotion. And that's something that we've got to try and work harder on. And if we if we can do things like this with yourself and promote rallying over the radio, then that's got to be a good thing for rallying for the future. And if hopefully we can do this again, Rob, in the future and carry on doing this every, I don't know, 6 months or 3 months or whatever, and then we can try and build that view that rallying isn't dying, rallying's still alive and well, and it's just hiding, and we just need to uncover it and bring it out into the open and say to people, look, this is how good rallying can be. Come along and have fun. And that's all part and parcel of it. And I'm sure other clubs are having the same issues with volunteers and looking at the volunteers that they've got now and going, hang on a minute, our age groups are getting older and older and older. Even the organisation within the teams that organise stuff, and we need to promote it. We need to tell people out there that, you know, this is available to you, and let them decide and let them come and have fun and let them see, and then we'll get the volunteer numbers for the larger events like Manx Auto Sport put on, and Druid will put on in the future, hopefully.
Thank you for having the stamina to make it to the end of the Manx Radio Sportscast. You're clearly someone who has their eye on the ball at all times. Want to hear more about the latest sporting news across the Isle of Man and much more? Then might I recommend you take the plunge and subscribe to this series or a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so that, in a flash, all of our finest moments take a winner's place on your smartphone. Thank you.